All right. Hello, hello, hello. How are you, my guys? Anyone here? I hope everyone is doing fine. Mm, I thought for today, maybe we can do something else instead of what we're doing usually. So, no Houdini stream or something. But I feel like this is a question I get asked quite often. And the question also get asked quite often on Discord. Probably it's quite overwhelming if you're a beginner and you don't know where to start and which software should I learn and what is the industry standard, what is the best way to basically make money. Hello, my brother. Here's a little hard. Hi, Luna. Nice to have you here in the live stream. So, for today, maybe, I thought it could be funny if we're doing a little tier list. It's a little bit of a bummer that my face is like covering it. Is better? I think that's better. Now we can see S tier and stuff. And all this things that I'm gonna explain now, or we're maybe speaking together. Maybe you guys can also help me and we can have a little discussion why you think maybe a few software that I put in a specific tier does not belong there or something. But yeah, it would be nice to actually create a little guide for someone who starts with 3D and wants to be part of this industry. So I'm basically, for anyone else like coming from the VFX industry or architectural industry or any other industry that has to do with 3D. This is not for you. It's basically for motion designers, people who are working or want to work in the commercial industry, who want to create beautiful clips with clients like Nike, Adidas, I don't know, Volvo, anything that has product involved with them. So what do we have here in the chat? Put motherfucker Max in the set tier. I'm struggling with it. So we're having already a hater with 3ds Max. That's good. That's good. I'm a little bit ashamed that the software has the same name as I do, but yeah, we're gonna rank it in a second. So Radesh, hi, my brother. He's saying Houdini the best, the rest garbage. Well, let's see. Lucian, my brother. Is this a hidden studio tier list stream? No, we're not gonna do studio tier lists because I still want to get booked as a freelancer. And I feel like if I put the studio in a bad tier list, I'm gonna be fucked. But anyways, we're gonna put some software here, and let's maybe. I also have I have 3D software, and I also have render engines. And if you feel like I'm putting something in the wrong tier, I'm very happy to discuss this with you guys. Put also rhinoceros with grasshopper. Yeah, I'm not so. Yeah, it's not so common to use grasshopper. I think grasshopper is mostly for 3D printing, right? Better than Max or Blender 1,000 times. Yeah, I think so too. But grasshopper is, I think, more for 3D printing, right? Isn't it? I mean, I've never used it, so it's kind of hard. Yeah, I'm not covering any 3D printing software here. I think you can discharge all the Autodesk shit, product manufacturing. Yeah, so this is no product manufacturing kind of stream, or it's more like from a standpoint out of the commercial industry. I've been working in this industry for I think 6 years or something, and yeah, I think nowadays I have quite a good overview of which software has been used in the industry and which software is not so much used. So yeah, let's. I think it was fine like that. Let's maybe start with the 3D software, and then we can jump in also in some render engines. I thought it would be also funny to rank some render engines. So I also have some. This is Octane, I guess. Arnold, Maya. We're having Corona Render, Blender, then Blender Cycles, Houdini, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, Unreal Engine, because I also have seen Unreal Engine is coming more and more, also in the commercial industry and in the motion design. Thanks for the follow, by the way. So we're having Karma inbuilt render engine. We're obviously having Redshift. This is Marvelous Designer, I think. Then we're also having Substance Painter, V-Ray, and ZBrush. So let's maybe start chronologically. Mantra is missing. Is someone still rendering with Mantra in the motion design industry? I think Mantra is not really used. Maybe it's used for some VFX stuff, but yeah. As I said, hands down, this is only motion design. So let's start maybe with Maya. And maybe some of you gonna fight me for that, but I'm gonna put Maya on the D tier. Actually, I've had so many bookings with big studios like Man vs. Machine, Future Deluxe, and so on. And I've never, ever seen someone using Maya. In all of my bookings, it doesn't matter which studio, everything we were working, I've never seen someone using Maya. Also not at iXponsor and where I've been in the past. So I think Maya is mostly used for the VFX industry. I think if you are into movies and stuff, people are doing character animation with Maya, but yeah, Maya is not really common in the motion design industry as far as I know. Mantra's missing. I want to be upper than Max. That's why. Hell no. Maya's good, man. Come on. Maya, don't get me wrong. I think Maya is still the industry standard for VFX. And in the end, it really depends on where you want to be in the industry. If you more likely want to be in the VFX industry, obviously you should learn Maya as well. But if you're more into motion design and stuff, I would not recommend to learn Maya. Maya is used for character animation mostly. Yeah, someone's asking for Eevee. I think real-time rendering is nice, but it's also not used a lot for final renderings. I think for final renderings, you're gonna switch to cycles anyways. But Eevee is pretty nice for look development and for quick results. I disrespect Maya. Fuck 3ds Max. Okay. So we're having, these are render engines. So let's go with Blender. Oh my gosh, guys, Blender. And it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna place it and then we can talk about it. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier. If you put down Unreal Engine, you should also put down Eevee. Yeah, okay, maybe. Can I add something still here? Let's maybe we can do a screenshot and put Eevee in the end. So someone's saying S tier for Blender. I would stick to A tier, and not because you're not capable of doing a lot with Blender. Blender is super powerful. I think Blender is also pretty nice if you want to start with 3D in general and you have never touched any 3D software. I would recommend you Blender because it's free, it's open source, there's a lot of tutorials, and you can learn a lot of stuff that you also need for other softwares, like what is a PBR workflow, how do lights work in 3D and stuff. I think those things are all the same in all software. Or how do I tweak animations? How do I use easings and stuff? Blender is really, really good. The only problem I have with Blender, and the reason why it's not on S tier, is because if you are a pro in Blender, it's nice for sure, but you're gonna be struggling to find jobs in the industry, because I think most studios, or actually all the studios I know, they're not using Blender at all. And I think maybe it has to do with old pipelines they established. Maybe it has to do with render farms. I cannot tell you why, but all the motion design studios, they're not really using Blender. So I cannot put it on S tier. I think I would put it on A tier, because you can do really, really a lot, and really became super powerful in the last couple of years, especially with geo nodes and stuff. So I think Blender for sure is A tier in my opinion. So Lucian is saying accurate. Blender is on a slow way to S with each update. I totally agree. Let's maybe in a couple of years this tier list looks completely different. And maybe in a few years Blender would be S tier, but for now I would place it on A tier, to be honest. So Blender's great, free, and best for learning, but not S tier software. That's what Luna says. I totally agree. Cinema 4D might be easier to learn, though. I agree. Cinema 4D is, I would say, maybe it can be compared like Cinema 4D is the iPhone, is like iOS, and Blender is more like Android. It's a little bit more complex, and Cinema 4D is a little bit more user-friendly. The only thing why I would recommend you still Blender if you're an absolute beginner and you have never opened any 3D software is basically because it's for free. Why should I pay for Cinema 4D and then just recognize I don't like 3D in general? So I would for sure start with Blender. And if you just recognize, okay, 3D is my passion, I love 3D, you can switch after a couple of months. I also did it like this, and I think a lot of people are doing it like this. They start with Blender and at some point they switch to another software for whatever reason. Maybe for limited resources reasons. Maybe you cannot achieve some certain effects, especially some simulation stuff. But yeah, Blender is super powerful, especially for beginners and for people who are basically doing 3D as a hobby, I would say. It's 100% nice. For those people, I would even put it on S tier. But from the standpoint and from the perspective as a professional motion designer, as a professional 3D motion designer, I would put it on A tier. Someone posted a reel saying Cinema 4D is for gay and rich people. And Digital Chef agreed. What? I'm not gonna blame LGBTQ people or people who are having a little bit too much money, but I think personally, Cinema 4D has evolved a little bit to a boomer software. But let's speak later about Cinema 4D. Let's stick to our plan. We're now with Blender, and I think I quite explained my thoughts about Blender. So let's go with what is the next? The next is Houdini. Oh, my friends, Houdini. Let's speak a little bit about Houdini. You know, this is my day-to-day software. I love Houdini, and I think it belongs on S tier, not only because I love it, because it's so powerful. You can do anything with Houdini. Houdini is like for sure one of the industry standards. Like every motion design studio is using Houdini, every VFX studio is using Houdini, every game studio is using Houdini. If you want to be part of the 3D industry and you're not sure if I want to be in the VFX industry, if I want to be in motion design or in game dev or something, learn Houdini. Trust me, you can do everything with Houdini. It's the most powerful software. The only downside to Houdini is it's super tough to learn. It's quite hard to learn, especially as a beginner. I would not recommend you Houdini because it can be super overwhelming in the beginning. But once you're comfortable with some certain 3D workflows and materials and lightings and stuff, and yeah, you love doing simulations, but you can also do all the other stuff with Houdini on a very, very high quality level. Only thing I think is not so nice with Houdini is maybe modeling as well. I'm not a big fan of modeling with Houdini. And I'm also not a big fan of sculpting with Houdini. But besides that, Houdini is for sure S tier. I recommend it to everyone. Even if you are a heavy Blender user or a heavy Cinema 4D user, Houdini can be like a nice little plugin. You can create some simulations and then add it back or export it back to Blender or Cinema 4D. So Houdini 100% S tier. Totally unbiased when it comes to Houdini. maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I'm also like speaking about industry standards, and I think nobody would fight me for Houdini being the industry standard for VFX, motion design, and game dev. And I think Houdini is basically also used in some 3D printing stuff, procedural generated geometry and things. Houdini's, I don't know, Houdini's so widely spread. I think I cannot think of any other 3D software that's been used in so many different fields. Can you in the comments name one software that is so widely spread as Houdini in so many different fields? Let me know. It would be super interesting. There you go. Truly unbiased indeed. Just the goat. Imagine good viewport. Okay, yeah, you can debate for the viewport. The classic meme. So someone posted a meme here. Let's check this meme out. Houdini learning path. Yeah, 100% sure. Houdini learning path is super hard. That's for sure one downside of it. It's gonna take some time, but once you don't be naive, you're never gonna master Houdini. I think nobody mastered Houdini at that point. I think there's still so much to learn for me and for a lot of other people, but Houdini still is by far the most powerful software. So yeah. Max, check meme section on Discord, please. Blender. Okay, let's go for another meme quickly here. Let's see what this is. We're having another meme here. Luna just posted it. Let's watch it together.
Retard reviewing
3D tools ranked by a
programs. First is Cinema 4D. It's for gay and rich people. Monthly subscription price is insane. You will go bankrupt within 2 weeks. They all have the same style and it looks kind of gay. I will put this in A tier. Second is Maya.
Okay, we're having a little tier list here.
People with depression and anxiety. It's a program for people who like to work 18 hours a day, 7 days per week, and you have to pay for it. So I will put this in A tier. 3ds Max is for people who are old and waiting for retirement. If you look at the UI, it's gonna take you back to 2009.
I totally
agree. The UI is shit. Only old people are using it, so I will put this in D tier. Next is Blender. People using Blender only knows how to make a donut. They don't usually do anything productive. But since it's free, I will put this in S tier. Next is Houdini. Houdini is for high IQ, smart people. Since I personally have low IQ, I will put this in F tier. Finally, ZBrush. ZBrush is for people with no friends.
He put it Houdini in F tier? That's crazy.
Millions of
I hate it already. I hate this guy. He put it in F tier? Fucking Houdini in F tier?
I won't put this in
Shut the fuck up,
F tier,
bro.
But you can easily get cracked for. I will put this in.
What are the comments?
A tier. Thank you guys for watching. So I'm gay
and rich and have no friends.
Retard
Patrick
reviewing 3D Pro.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting video. I enjoyed it quite a lot. But let's jump back to our more serious tier list here. Not so much a retard tier list. We take it more seriously. And I actually want to give people some good advice in the industry. So they usually don't do any productive. It's hilarious. I believe it is a prank. Yeah, I think it was sarcasm or irony. But yeah, back to it. So let's speak about 3ds Max. I think unfortunately this guy was true. 3ds Max for sure is for me D tier. I think as he said, it's for old people. And I think 3ds Max is more like for archvids, so for architectural visualization stuff. I think it's not so much for the motion design industry. So I think if you're an expert in 3ds Max, you're gonna barely find any jobs. Yeah, fucking dinosaur software. I think 3ds Max is not really good. I know I think I know not a single designer who's using 3ds Max. Oh wait, I think I do know one designer. I mean, I know a lot designers, but I think what is he called? Luke Pendry XR or something. Luke Penry XR. I think he's using 3ds Max and he's doing quite good stuff. But I think he's the only one, as far as I know. I mean, I'm not so sure if he's using 3ds Max. He has it in the hashtags. But I believe I asked him once and he said he's using 3ds Max. So this is actually the only good artist I know using 3ds Max. But yeah, I think most of the other artists who are using 3ds Max, they're doing more like architectural visualization and stuff. So yeah, definitely D tier if it comes to motion design industry. If you are in the architectural industry, it's probably S tier, but here it's D tier. So it always depends on the use case, of course. Download it and use it, man. I want you to feel my pain. Bro, I already learned Houdini and it was painful enough. So I think I'm good. I don't need to learn 3ds Max and I don't want to go through this pain. So 3ds Max definitely D tier. Let's come to the next software. Glepik, my brother. Hi. How are you doing? Has like every software available in his hashtags. Yeah, true. It's kind of hard, but I think Luke Pentry, I asked him once and he said he's using 3ds Max. Maybe I'm wrong. If he's not using 3ds Max, I know no single designer who's using 3ds Max. So Glepik's asking, why is Maya D tier? I think I don't know a single dude who's using Maya in the motion design industry, so it is D tier for sure in motion design. It might be A or S tier in VFX design, in VFX, not design, but visual effects. It's probably A or S tier. And when it comes to character animation, it's probably also S tier. But for motion design, Maya is D tier. I'm sorry. So, Cinema 4D. Guys, I think, can I place it in between A and S? I cannot, right? So I would put it, actually, I gotta put it in the S tier. I think Cinema 4D, although I think in the last years, it's evolving more and more to a boomer software. I think a lot of people are switching from Cinema 4D to either Blender or Houdini or something. And I think the simulation tools and the updates are not really working well. I remember when they were like implementing, as far as I hope you know that Maxon is the owner of Cinema 4D, but also Redshift, and they were implementing the real-time feature in Redshift, which was basically a crash button. Every time you hit on real time, it was not working smooth like Eevee. It was instant crash button. But yeah, I think still, until this day, I think Cinema 4D is the most used software in motion graphics when it comes to 3D. I think it's easier to learn. It's easier to learn than Houdini. Houdini is quite hard. It's quite easy to learn Cinema 4D, and it has all the nice built-in features like MoGraph fields and MoGraph effects, and you can achieve something really nice motion graphicsy like with those deformers and MoGraph tools. So I would put it in S tier when it comes to motion design. I think nobody's debating me here, right? Luna's saying S tier. Lucian is saying it's S tier. Lapik is saying motion design is S tier for Cinema 4D. Most used, yeah. I switched from Blender to Cinema 4D, and yeah, it's very great. They tried to copy Eevee and failed. Yeah, that's true, unfortunately. It was my first 3D software 15 years ago, so for a nostalgic reason, I agree as well. Yeah, I was also starting with Cinema 4D. And nowadays, I'm doing everything inside of Houdini. But when it comes to modeling, I still love to go back to Cinema 4D. Simply, I think the modeling tools in Blender are better, but I was so used to model in Cinema 4D that I still know all the shortcuts and stuff when I do modeling in Cinema 4D. So yeah, for me, Cinema 4D is still S tier. Although nowadays I'm not using it, and when I get a booking, I usually get a booking as a Houdini artist. But I also tell the studios that I'm capable of using Cinema 4D, and if they need, I don't know, an extra hand on a project that requires Cinema 4D, I'm always happy to join them. And I ask if they can provide me a Cinema 4D license for 1 month. Usually the studios do that, or they pay me a little bit more than my regular day rate in order that I can buy like Cinema 4D for 1 month. And I think it's still quite the industry standard. So if you want to get freelance gigs, if you want to start as a junior at a nice motion design studio like, I don't know, XK, Tendril, Future Deluxe, Man vs. Machine, anything like that, they're still using Cinema 4D quite a lot. So Tim J, he's coming in here. Yeah, I think Cinema 4D is an S tier. We're speaking about this is a tier list for motion designers, 3D motion designers, and I think Cinema 4D is still the industry standard. Although I think Houdini is coming more and more, I think Cinema 4D is still the motion standard, the industry standard for motion design. Would you debate me for that? Do you think I'm wrong, Tim, my brother? Let me know if you think I'm wrong. I'm super happy to debate this stuff. But yeah, I think it's S tier when it comes to motion design. So, and we're speaking about motion design and, you know, some product visualizations and stuff like that. Currently out with the gravel bike. We'll be back at the desktop later. Nice. Have a nice time, man. Enjoy the weather. No, I think so too. Cinema 4D definitely standard. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for agreeing with me, my brother. Yeah, I think so too. In the commercial industry, in the motion design industry, it's for sure S tier. So, with Unreal Engine, it's a tricky one for me. I've used it a couple of times, and I know there are some clients, especially in the automotive industry. There is a lot, like, they use a lot Unreal Engine. So some people are saying A, it's for games. Lucian is saying B. For me, it's also B. I gotta be honest, there are some use cases in the industry where, especially for automotive, for example, I think they're doing stuff quite often with Unreal Engine. And I think you can achieve quite realistic results with Unreal Engine. And you can do nice motion design as well, maybe, but you will lose the real-time feature. It will still require you to render and stuff. And I think Unreal Engine is basically not been created for this kind of use case. I mean, everyone knows that Unreal Engine is a game engine, right? It's been originally created for games and not for motion design and yeah, 3D design. So I would put it in B tier. It's still more often used than Maya and 3ds Max, but I think those three softwares, Houdini, Cinema 4D, and Blender, they for sure are more often used than Unreal Engine. Never used it for motion design. What about Touch Designer for live visuals, motion, or similar? Yeah, good point. Maybe we're gonna extend this list later. We're gonna put a little bit more here. Let's keep those ideas. Maybe I'm gonna write down Touch Designer. I'm gonna add it later. And I think there was also a question for another software. Anyways, let me know. I think it was Eevee, right? Eevee. We can add these in the end. Because I think if I reset the stuff or upload anything new, it will reset my tier list. So yeah. Interactive real-time application is quite common with Unreal Engine. Yeah, that's true. Like also like clients in the design industry, they're like experimenting with interactive design. like playing games and stuff, but you're having, for example, the latest BMW model in the game, and you drive the latest BMW through a fantasy world. I remember there was an actual project like that with BMW where they were driving through a fantasy world. It was in this kind of NFT era. I don't know if they also had something to do with NFTs there, but I remember they had a project where it was interactive and they used Unreal Engine for that. So it's somehow used in the industry, but I would say also not very often. So I would place it into B, and I think it's a good place for Unreal Engine there. Do call me when you're on Arnold. All right, sorry, my stream just fucked up. Am I here again? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Sorry for this interruption. Thank you very much for letting me know. Sometimes my internet just shitty as fuck, you guys know. So we gotta take the internet as it is. Tim Sweeney got mad. All right, okay. So it says I'm having 0 people in the stream, but I think it's due to this weird, broken internet connections. Anyways, we were at Marvelous Designer, I think. So when it comes to Marvelous Designer, can you guess the tier? Let's do a little guess. What would you put it in? Marvelous Designer. Do you think it's used quite often in the 3D, in the motion design industry, or? Glepix saying B, very niche. Finally catching the stream. Hey all, I'm coming it with a hot take. 3ds Max is awesome for modeling and product visualization, not for motion. Yeah, fair enough. I think there are definitely use cases for 3ds Max as well. But yeah, it's not motion design. B, very niche, or even C? Really? I think I would disagree. I think C even? Interesting. Hotter take than the seat wave. Yeah, true. I would put it... Actually, I'm struggling. I would put it actually to A tier even. I know quite a lot designers actually who combined Cinema 4D before the update of the cloth simulation tools. I think Marvelous Designers was used quite often. Also, like when I was at Man vs. Machine, we used Marvelous Designer very often for... You don't need to do cloth there. You can, like, actually clothing to wear, like fashion stuff. I mean, it's the industry if you do fashion, which also belongs somehow in the 3D design industry, I think. Fashion is a quite big point, I would say. And I would say it's quite common, and I think like designers who are using Cinema 4D and they're not very common or not very familiar with Houdini, I saw some really, really good abstract motion design with Marvelous Designer, to be honest. So I gotta place it on A. Or actually, I would put it between A and B, somewhere around here. But because it's not possible here to do it, I need to put it on A. It's a little bit more on A, I would say. Getting roasted both in my home and online too. Well, welcome to the stream. I'm glad you made it here. So in this stream, everyone gets roasted, my friends. It should be behind Unreal Engine. Yeah, I think it depends on the use case a little bit. For me, not saying it's bad. For me, it's a little bit above Unreal Engine. That's just my personal opinion here. Marvelous Designer was a hidden gem discovered by the motion community. Heard an interview of a developer once where they were like, what the fuck, we meant it to be used in the fashion industry. Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty common in the fashion industry. I think it is the fashion industry standard software. So if you are thinking about learning 3D design and you want to be a fashion designer and you want to do clothing and I don't know, abstract stuff, it's 100% the way to go. What is this girl called who's doing 3D fashion? I forgot her name. She was also having a talk at the off. I think she's from China, as far as I know. What is her name? She was also doing NFTs and stuff. Do you guys know who I mean? She's using Marvelous Designer quite a lot. She's also doing live streams and stuff. Really, really great artist. I just forgot the name. I'm stupid. Come on, guys, help me here. You know who I'm talking about. Just wanted to show her work. I think she's doing awesome work with Marvelous Designer. But yeah, I forgot her name. I'm really, really sorry. My bad. But I'm actually a big fan of her work. But my brain is just fried from whatever. Okay, anyways. If you guys cannot help me to find this artist, let's continue with Substance Painter. And oh boy, this is gonna be a tough one, and I think I'm gonna get quite a lot backlash. No idea who you're talking about. Really? Let's see. Maybe we can find her. Marvelous. I think she's using Marvelous Designer quite a lot. Maybe she got featured or somewhere here. But yeah, as you can see, like, you can do awesome stuff like clothing that is super nice. You can also do some design stuff with Lego and so on. Some abstract things. It's pretty hard. Is she here? No. I think she was doing quite traditional Chinese clothing stuff. And she's pretty famous actually for that. She also had a talk at the off, I think. But yeah, I kind of forgot her name. Maybe we can find it quickly. No, not really. But yeah, Marvelous Designer, really, really nice. Obviously for fashion design. Pretty, pretty cool. And you can also do abstract design. You can also like do stuff like this, right? You can also like simulate it inside of Marvelous Designer, which is super nice if you have a character wearing those clothes. I think you can actually simulate it in there. And yeah, it's the standard, so it belongs quite high in the tier list, in my opinion. Sorry. So, Substance Painter. I need to check Marvelous Designer Insta more often. Yeah, you should. I think there's quite good work, actually. So, for this one, it's hard. I know some artists who are using it quite frequently. And if you are modeling specific things and you want to like create specific textures for these models, it's probably quite high in the tier list. But as a motion designer, and I think as my career, like in the 6 years I'm doing motion design and doing 3D motion design and working with the best studios out there, personally, I've never used it. But I know there are some people who are using it with more like not procedural generated stuff, but more like if you want to create something very specific. But I think it's somewhere in between here. I would put it on C. Substance also A tier if you're into texture painting. As a motion designer, never used it. Yeah, exactly. That's the point. I think it's pretty handy, pretty nice software if you're doing modeling a lot, if you're doing this more kind of a Cornelius Demrich, like a little bit used. If you're doing a lot surface imperfections, and a lot like used stuff, you know what I mean? Like if you're creating stuff like this, for example, if you're creating scenes like this, a little bit not so common for the motion design industry and for 3D designers, because usually if you have a product, you want to have it in a very nice, beautiful environment, a very high class premium not so much surface imperfections like here. But I think for scenes like this, or if you have a specific product and you want to have like dirt maps on a specific area and so on, I think Substance Painter is really, really good. For me personal, Glepic is saying Substance Painter is better than Marvelous Designer. Fair enough. I can understand that. Rarely use it, but very good tool set for hero assets with love. Yeah, I think so. I think if you have a hero asset and you want to give it specific textures and stuff that are actually sticking to the UVs, I think Substance Painter, or you want to do decals and stuff. You can also do it in in render engines in another way, but yeah, I think Substance Painter is very useful. Oopsies, sorry, closing this stuff. It's very useful, but I think as a motion designer, you don't really need it. You don't really need to learn it. I think you're gonna do very well on a booking if you're not having this kind of stuff. That's my opinion. So if I'm doing that, I'm doing procedurally with nodes. Yeah, I think also if whenever I'm like painting something or doing some specific, textures on the UVs. Personally, I use Photoshop. It's not in the tier list here because it not really has something to do with 3D, I would say. But yeah, I think I'm rather using Photoshop for specific UV painting stuff than Substance Painter. I used it I think twice or something just for fun, trying it out. But I really thought I don't need it, and it turns out never on a booking I really needed it. So yeah. And also part of the Adobe ecosystem by now, so bumps its own tier lower by default. Fair enough. Word. Photoshop, boomer move. Yeah, that's true. I'm not using Photoshop very often, but when I do, I just do some UV decals or UV stuff. Anyways, June. Hello. Nice to have you here in the stream. So what is the next software? The next software and the last software, I think, is ZBrush. And then we start diving into the render engines. But when you do it after you get your pension. Yeah, true. True. ZBrush S tier. Okay, well, we're still speaking about the motion design industry and the product visualization stuff. I think I would put it into A tier. And you know why? Because I think ZBrush is very, very strong, especially if you're having clients that are like producing, for example, eatables, like food stuff, anything that has to do with the food industry. I think Patrick 4D is a nice example here. He's also I would call him a 3D designer, but he's using ZBrush a lot. ZBrush, Cinema 4D, and Octane, as far as I know, is he using. And he's doing food a lot. He's like the master of food. And as you can see, like sculpting all these organic shapes, it's super nice doing it with the ZBrush. So if you want to do food later on in your career, I would highly recommend learning ZBrush. But for us as a general designer, I would put it into A tier because you're gonna struggle a lot if you're gonna do, I would say, for example, animation simulation. I think ZBrush is not the software where you can actually simulate stuff. Can you even animate things in ZBrush? I think it's a pure sculpting software. It's 100% ideal for creating food and organic stuff, but it's not as powerful as these, in my opinion. So it's still very good, and it's nice to have in your tool set. It's a nice add-on, and it's really, really handy if you combine, for example, ZBrush with Cinema 4D or with Houdini, just like Patrick is doing. I think he's sculpting inside of ZBrush, and then he's putting the models into Cinema 4D, where he's rendering it with Octane. I think that's the workflow here, as far as I know. Brad looks a bit odd here, in my opinion. But anyways, yeah, I think ZBrush is very, very strong, very powerful as a plugin. I would say as a standalone software, you should not start learning ZBrush. I would recommend you learn Houdini, Cinema 4D, or Blender, and then as an add-on, learn these softwares like Marvelous Designer or ZBrush and stuff. These are more like some kind of add-ons for me. If we're speaking from the perspective of a 3D motion designer. So yeah, popular and good, but very specific. I hate the controls in ZBrush. Other than that, it's really good, but not really common in motion design. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the controls are very weird with holding down control, then releasing it, then you can zoom in and stuff. Something like that. I used ZBrush a couple of times, and I also never really got warm with it. So yeah, ZBrush is powerful. I know a lot of Houdini artists who have ZBrush as an add-on in their tool set, because Houdini is like not so good with sculpting, but if you're really good in sculpting with ZBrush, you can get your models inside of Houdini and you can actually like create some organic simulations in Houdini and then have the animation and simulation happening in Houdini, but the asset generation side of ZBrush, especially if you are into food, organics, and I don't know. Yeah, mostly like food, I would say. You can obviously also do different stuff with ZBrush. You can sculpt characters and stuff, but I think sculpting characters is not so much common in the motion design industry. So yeah, all ZBrush is Z tier. I would not agree with that. But is there anything you guys want like to add here when it comes to programs and stuff, or should we dive into some render engines? Speak about render engines. Jacob, my brother, he's shouting. Captain Caps Lock is shouting in the chat. Wait. No characters? Oh yeah, sorry, brother. I know you're doing a lot characters, but actually, as far as I know, all the big, like, don't get me wrong, my brother, I love your characters and I love characters in general, but like in the motion design industry, if you have a product, for example, I don't know, a new watch or something, like a Rolex watch or a car or something, there's like usually not so many characters involved with it. I mean, there are some niche clips with animated characters and stuff, but I think it's not so much the trend nowadays. If you take a look at those big studios like Man vs. Machine and stuff, and you check out their motion design work, I think you see barely characters. I mean, they have some niche things where they have some characters as well, but you could also sculpt stuff like this, for example. They do have some characters here, so it's a bad example now. Yeah, for niche brands like Airbnb. I mean, okay, there are some projects now and then, but you know what I mean. Like these kind of huge, realistic motion design campaigns, they usually don't have characters involved. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying something wrong here. I mean, or something like this, Magnum stuff, there's not a character suddenly licking the ice cream, right? I get it, but there's actually a lot of character work around. There is, yeah. For sure, there is a lot character work around, but I think it's not the main focus of the motion design industry. I think it's not character. I think actually, I mean, for maybe it's also my bubble because I'm more like from the simulation animation kind of world inside of Houdini. But I think looking as an objective perspective on all these work from bigger studios like Man V, or actually we can also look Future Deluxe. I think you get my point. There is still a lot character stuff around, but it's not so common nowadays in in the commercial field, in in the motion design if you're like doing stuff, for example, for Nike and so on. As you can see, I think also it also has something to do with budget, because whenever I was working on such a project and there were like even the slightest thought of introducing a character, it has to do a lot with money, because you need to hire another character animator, you need to sculpt the character, and you need to animate it. I mean, there is one clip with a character, but it just makes sense for Lego to have characters in there, since they also have these Lego characters. Probably just my view. I probably just like more in that direction. Yeah, I think you also receive, if you receive bookings, you probably also receive bookings for your character work, I guess. There's Buck, for example, who have more character stuff. Yeah, I think there are for sure studios who are using character work a lot, but I think in general in the motion design industry, characters are not so widely spread. Just my 2 cents from my perspective. But yeah, it would be funny, or it would be very interesting to hear from other guys. What do you think? Do you think character sculpting is something that is super important as a motion designer? I would be just interesting to hear. Or as a 3D designer, do you think character sculpting is something that is necessary? Or would you place it on the same tier as Houdini and Cinema 4D? Would be super nice to hear some opinions, because basically I'm having another opinion than Jacob. But yeah, you're right, of course. I hope I didn't offend you or something. I mean, there is still character work out there. You can use VDBs for characters as well. Yeah, I think for basic characters you can also do that pretty quickly without ZBrush. As Dennis is saying, you can also create characters quite quickly inside of Cinema 4D with volume builder, volume mesher, or inside of Houdini with VDB actions and stuff. You can quite model characters quite quickly. I mean, it depends in the end if the character looks good and stuff, but I think, and obviously with ZBrush you have much more control, but it's also possible to do character work when you need it. It's also possible to do it in these softwares. So I would still leave it as A tier, because it's super handy for some abstract things. For some organic stuff like food and so on. I also think like XK Studio is using ZBrush quite a lot. Since I think one of the owner is a big ZBrush fan. I think what is she called? I think it was the girl. Sorry, I also Alexa. I forgot her name. God damn my brain. I'm very sorry. If you see this, I'm very sorry. Houdini sculpt SOP isn't too shabby as well. I'm not a big fan of sculpting inside of Houdini. I think character stuff is really nice, but more niche in our terms. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. Thanks, Tim J. I think so too. Alexa, yeah, Alexa was her name. She's like a big fan of ZBrush as far as I know. You can sculpt in Houdini. I know you can, but I'm not a good sculptor. So anyways, let's dive into some render engines. Still, have you any questions, or would you change something here? And if you would change something in the software tier list, let me know why. This is my tier list for software. And now we're putting on top of that render engines, because this is a hot topic, I think, in 3D design. I think render engines is like this. I think I had so many discussions about what is better, Redshift, Octane, should I use Arnold, should I use stuff like that. So yeah, Unreal Engine, Marvelous, ZBrush, anything else is okay. So you would put Unreal Engine over Marvelous and ZBrush. Okay, I get it. But you're also like doing a lot automotive, right, Glepik? So probably this is like not very useful for automotive, and I get it. But yeah, I think in the end it also depends what kind of clients you want. So if you are a 3D designer and you want to do a lot of food renderings, you probably need to learn ZBrush and, I don't know, Cinema 4D. if you want to do 3D fashion design, you probably need to learn Marvelous Designer. If you want to do a lot automotive, Unreal Engine is probably a good choice. Never used Unreal Engine for work, but it's way more common. For automotive, for sure, it is. But I think for everything else, it's not really. Christian, my brother. Hi, hi. How are you doing? How is it going with the snails? Is it going good? In general, I would say. Okay, interesting. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we could put those two also a little bit down like this. Would be also fine. But I just leave it like that. I keep it like that. So yeah, let's start with render engines. So we're having Octane. So Octane is the first one, and Octane. What is Octane as a tier for you guys? I would put Octane to S tier. Octane straight S tier. Glepic also says it in the chat. I think Octane deserves S tier. I think Octane is super strong. You can create very realistic results and beautiful results with Octane very quickly without a lot dialing in stuff. And I think Octane is also the way to software with a lot studios. So for example, I know XK Studio, they are using Octane with all their commercial work as well. So all these renderings you see is all Octane. And I think it's super beautiful. So all this stuff is Octane basically. And I think, which studio was it also? I think also Zunk Studio. Zunk Studios also using Octane. So there is plenty of great design studios out there who are using Octane. And if you want to work with these studios, I would highly recommend you learning Octane. And in the past, I also saw quite a lot posts from them from time to time where they had this in their story that they're specifically looking for Octane artists. So yeah, I would highly recommend you to learn Octane if you want to work with these studios. And it's for sure an S tier because yeah, it's so widely used. I would put it in S tier. The only thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing is that I think Octane had some problems when the poly count was quite high. I remember where I was on productions, especially with IX Bonza, where we started scenes building with Octane, and at some point we recognized the scene got too heavy and we switched over to Redshift. So I think in some cases Octane might be, yeah, too limiting. But I think they also improved over the last couple of years. So I think maybe it's not the reason anymore with the poly count and heavy scenes. So what is it in the chat? So Octane S tier agreed. Especially the development we saw in the last month within Houdini. I used Octane a bit, but it's limited. Okay, is it still because of the poly count with Octane? Also, the standalone plus R&D is render is so good. Still has that weird material workflow in Cinema 4D, mixing materials especially, much better in Houdini. All right, I think I used Octane inside of Cinema 4D. It was quite similar to Redshift with the node workflow, I think. I used to work with Octane when I switched to Redshift and had to use Octane for a client project, and it was so horrible. Oh, really? Was it so slow, or was it so buggy or crashy, Jacob? Or what was the problem? In the past, when I tried Octane, the displacement was not that great. Not sure about it right now. Yeah, Zolska, I totally agree. I also had some problems with the displacement. But the problem for me was, I mean, the last time I used Octane is like, I think 3 years ago or something. But it was crashing a lot when I used displacements. I heard that the render preview is also much more snappy nowadays and much better, but I had so many crashes back in the days. But I think it still belongs into S tier because, yeah, it's so widely used in the motion design industry and in the 3D design industry. So it belongs there for sure. It's not a production renderer. Good for MoGraph in small to medium scenes. I would say it is a production renderer. I mean, there are plenty of studios who are basically using it. So, yeah. And I think also when I was at Man vs. Machine, we also thought we had discussions in the team whether we should go back to Octane or we should stick to Redshift. But yeah. So I think Octane is still a topic, and I think it belongs into S tier. So yeah, displacement isn't the biggest strength for sure. Maybe I was just not used to it anymore, but for me personally, I couldn't get the look I liked for my work in Redshift. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Good point, Jacob here. If stuff gets big like a car from the client, 24GB RAM is not enough. And even with my snail, can't use XPU anymore because of UDIMs. Okay, that's a bummer. So it's still a problem if you have like huge scenes. So it's mostly like for product visualization and some smaller like some smaller MoGraph stuff and some smaller motion design. But I know like Raphael Rau, Silverwing FX, I think. He's also explaining how to use Octane with bigger scenes and stuff. And by the way, also check out his channel. He's having beautiful tutorials if you want to learn Octane. I can highly recommend that. This channel. And I think I was speaking the other day with Raphael Rau, and he explained me there are ways to achieve also bigger scenes, but it's quite fakery, and you need to work with some, I don't know whether these are proxies and stuff like that, but yeah. Octane is a bit buggy and a bit crashy. And I think like back in the days when I was working with Octane, there was also no light linking working. I think nowadays it's no problem. I think nowadays you can use light linking as well. But yeah. I mean, bigger productions like many characters, big texture sets, etc. Okay, fair enough. Maybe Octane is not the best choice here. It fully works fine in production for motion designers. It's not an engine for films. Fair enough. Vincent always tested it against Redshift, and he always said it's shit, so I didn't even try. Oh yeah, I remember those tests from Vincent. Yeah. I also were watching those videos. Quite interesting. He circled constantly back to Octane, trying to juice what is better for his kind of art style, whether it is Octane or Redshift. And I also remember like he was saying Redshift was the winner quite often, right? Many do landscapes with Octane, but you can end up in a corner. I think Octane. The only thing why I would choose Octane is because you can achieve realism so quickly. It's so nice how the light behaves. I would say Octane has a very beautiful light response curve, and the reflections, especially like glass materials, water stuff, it looks like liquid thingies with refractions. It looks so good in Octane compared to Redshift. I think it's a downside in Redshift that you cannot create super realistic glass results. I think you can fake it nowadays with some Fresnels and stuff. But yeah, I think Octane, when it comes to realism, is still superior compared to Redshift, in my opinion. But it has its own downsides. But Raphael is not a real human. Yeah, Raphael Rau is a mad genius, guys. I think bigger scenes are really okay if you dive in and use proxies, etc. Okay, good to know. Thanks for letting me know, Tim J. Raphael goes crazy with the shaders. Yeah, he's really good with his shaders work. Yeah, he's a mad genius. I once did a 36K render with V-Ray. V-Ray is solid as hell. Oh shit. So you're gonna hate me after my V-Ray rating. But Octane looks really good. Why you put Maya and 3ds Max at D? I explained it already. I'm not gonna tell it again. But you're very welcome to rewatch this stream and see why I put it on D. But Octane looks really good, yeah. So let's go into the next one. Oh boy. I think Arnold. I think Arnold is very common when it comes to VFX, right? But Arnold is not really common when it comes to motion design. I think it's slow. Arnold is C tier. I would also put Arnold into C tier because I know you can basically create something very beautiful and very realistic with Arnold. It's really good. So Christian is saying Arnold has a better quality than Octane. Yes, maybe, but in terms of motion design and 3D design, I would say Arnold is between D and C tier because Arnold is so fucking slow, and in this industry, we need to render a lot and quickly, and it's too slow to work with. And you for sure can create something beautiful, and I think it's still widely used in the VFX industry, but for our industry field, I don't know anyone who's using Arnold with product renderings and stuff and motion design. I don't know if you guys know someone, but I don't really know someone who's successful in this industry and is using Arnold in a very successful way. But reliable, most reliable renderer, I would use it. Okay, Christian, you're the only artist who's using it. All right, let's jump into Corona rendering. I think Corona is used for architectural visualization. So it's also not very common in the motion design. I would put it. Oh, wow. It's pretty hard to see it, right? Because it has the same color. So this is Corona renderer. I would put it on D here even. It's super slow. And as far as I know, it's just been used for interior rendering, architectural visualization and stuff. So Corona renderer is not really used as a 3D designer. I don't know anyone who's using it. So Corona has probably one of the nicest looks of all engines. Maybe you're probably right, but I think when it comes to the look, it always depends on the artist. And I think if you really know how to use Octane, for example, you can also create something very beautiful. And I think Corona is like too slow. The same as with Arnold. It's both too slow. Very good, but slow as fuck unless you have a Threadripper. Yeah, I think Corona is CPU rendering, right? It's too fucking slow. It's too slow. Do you know Make Haste Corp on YouTube? They use it. No, I don't really know them. Ash Torp, I know Ash Torp, yeah. He's doing a lot automotive, right? Is he using Corona? I was not aware of that. Corona, best looking renderer out of the box. Haste Corp is Ash Torp. Plus a guy, I don't know. Oh, okay, yeah, then basically it's just Ash Torp who's using it. Haste, Ash Torp, and Color Sponge. Yeah, Color Sponge is also really good. Yeah, I don't know. I stick to D. I've never seen a studio I was booked with who's using Corona. Yeah. I also, like, with all the studios I was working with, also as a working student, as a junior artist and stuff, they never really used Corona renderer. So yeah. They ditched V-Ray because Corona looks better. Interesting. So now I'm gonna prepare myself for a little bit of hate because the next two render engines are widely spread in the field, and it's Cycles from Blender and the inbuilt renderer from Houdini Karma XPU. And I would put Cycles on B tier. No, yeah, on B tier. Cycles A next to Blender. Cycles is B tier. Yeah, for me, Cycles is also B tier. And I tell you why. I like Cycles really much. S, I use it at Letrock. Okay. It's A. If you use Blender, it should be next to Blender. Should we put it? Okay, let's go. Let's put it next to Blender. Let's go. Guys, all right, all right. For me, it's basically between A and B. Because it's super strong, I think you can create very nice, realistic results. But I feel like Cycles gives me a lot like this kind of Toy Story vibes. Like, although Toy Story has been rendered with RenderMan, I know that it's, I think, the render engine from Disney. But very often when I see renderings with Cycles, it gives me Toy Story vibes. I cannot describe why, but you can also create something very beautiful and realistic with Cycles. But I put it on A tier because it's not very common with studios and within the industry. I think I've never seen a studio who's actually doing client work with Cycles. Lol, I don't know what Cycles renders you have seen. Yeah, maybe I've seen the wrong Cycle renders. Le Truc. Yeah, bro, one studio. Yeah, okay, come on. I mean, if you can find one studio if you really want to go with for it. Let's check it out. Okay, let's check it out. Are they only using Cycles? Let's check them out. I also use Cycles. You can check my renders. Yeah, Lucian is doing very, very nice renders. I agree. So this is all Cycles. It is beautiful, for sure. Okay, fair enough. It's pretty nice. Okay, okay. I also use Cycles. The interactivity, speed, and flexibility of Cycles is insane. I agree with the look. It's below Octane and the others. You need to work harder, but it can look insanely good in the right hands. For sure, I think every render engine can look insanely good in the right hands. But I would say, yeah, yeah, it looks very nice. Yeah, it does. Hmm. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Maybe there are some studios who are using it. I never got booked by any studio, or actually, I think it's if there are some studios or if there are people using Cycles for client work, it's still not the majority. It's still not the big piece of the cake, right? The most studios are like using Octane and Redshift, I would say. I used Cycles in a studio 4 years ago. Was it a motion design studio? Really? Interesting. Really interesting. I did a lot of Brita. Okay, interesting. Yeah, okay. So let's keep it on A because I think it's below Octane in my opinion. Let's keep it on A. I think that's a fair rating. No motion design. There you go. I think for motion design and 3D design, it's more here. Now comes Karma, and I think the chat is going to escalate now because I'm not a big fan of Karma. I'm not a big fan of Karma. I know it can be powerful, but I would put it on B tier. F tier? Wait, you don't like Karma, brother? MJ, I thought you liked Karma. Never seen Karma motion design. Yeah, same. Would be very popular renderer in Cinema 4D and Houdini, just a Blender exclusivity. Yeah, I know about the Cinema 4D plugin. There was an integration for Houdini some years ago with Hydra delegates. Okay. Where you guys are still talking about Cycles, right? So yeah, I think with Karma, I would even put it on between here, B or C. I think I would put it in between those two. But I would keep it on B actually. No man, I really don't like it. Instantly switched to Redshift when I started learning Houdini. Yeah, fair enough. I also used Redshift a lot. Paulo from Versus Studio does their work in Karma XPU. Yeah, I think by the way, Versus Studio also a very nice studio. I think you can achieve nice results, but I think it's very hard to create something very good looking with Karma. Karma will be S tier in future along with USD workflow, I think. But for now, it's not sophisticated enough. Yeah, I do agree. I don't know what's happening in the future. Nobody can predict the future, but I think Karma is, in terms of look, not where it should be, in my opinion. It's not powerful enough to compete with other software like Octane. I think Karma, yeah, Karma you can create some nice results, but it takes a lot work and a lot. Yeah, you need to know a lot about this render engine, and I think Karma's pretty hard. But although it's quite fast, right? So yeah, Ano Plus starting switching to Karma. Interesting. That's really interesting. I was not aware of that. But let's see what they come up with in the next couple of years. For now, I think Karma's on B tier. I think now it's in a really good spot in going forward. Exciting for Houdini 2022. I think so too. Yeah, I think let's see how Karma will evolve in the future. But for now, I believe that Karma belongs into the B spot. Do you agree or not? For now, Karma B tier, good or no? Write plus in the chat if you agree, minus if you don't agree. Plus if you agree with B, minus if you don't agree. So we're getting quite a lot pluses. You need to go full USD to have speed. What's your feeling with quality, Max? Would love to know. What do you mean? What do you mean with quality? Within render engines, I think the best quality. You mean like if you're not taking render times into considerations? Oh, okay. Karma's quality? I think Karma's quality is not there yet. I think personal Karma is not on the same level as Octane or Redshift, for example. I think Karma is like lacking realism, and I think Karma is lacking, yeah, basically quality. But I haven't used it on my own. I've seen like a bunch of Karma renders, and I was not really convinced that Karma can produce nice results. And I'm also not aware of the biggest designers out there. I'm following quite huge designers, and I think nobody's using Karma really. I mean, there are probably a few, but I think most of the very huge and well-known designers, they're not using it. Mixed feelings and opinions on the list, but this chat is full of S-tier people. There you go. And we're building this tier list together with this S-tier people. This tier list is also S-tier. Wait. Thank you, my brother. Here's my heart. My heart goes out to you, my brother. Maybe it's common in film. Yeah, maybe. I think in the VFX industry, it's more common to use Karma and Mantra and also Arnold, I think. But yeah, it's not so much common in the motion design industry. And since we're speaking from the motion design industry or the 3D design industry, it's not so high ranked. But my friends, now comes the render engine. Guess the tier. Guess the tier from Redshift. Guess the fucking tier from Redshift. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, Tim J guessed it right. It belongs on fucking S tier. I swear to God, when it comes to 3D design, I think Redshift is for sure S tier. It's super fast. You can create highly realistic results, like even like hyper realistic photographic results, just like with Octane. And plus, on top of that, it's the industry standard. I would say almost every studio is using Redshift, or they used Redshift at some point. But I think even nowadays, I think almost every studio is using Redshift. There are a few who are not using Redshift, like we just checked these out. They're using Cycles and also XK and stuff. They're using Octane, but I think most of the studios are using Redshift nowadays. And I think for a reason, I also think, I gotta be honest, back in the days, Redshift was for sure way superior, but there was a time when Maxon bought Redshift, and I think from there on, Redshift went a little bit down. I think Redshift is not so much superior against other render engines than it used to be back in the days. I think nowadays it's I would say more or less on the same level as Octane. I think back in the days when Octane was super buggy and crashing a lot, I think Redshift was even above Octane. But nowadays I would put them on the same level. And I think there's some downsides and some benefits to Redshift. I think Redshift is super robust, although it crashes sometimes, but compared to other render engines, especially Octane, it's quite robust. It is nice and easy to use. You have the node workflow, the procedural node workflow, which is super nice to build shaders. Yeah, I think the what is it called? The render preview is quite snappy. It's quite fast. You have a nice workflow to set up AOVs. You can do light linking. What else? I mean, it's basically a very nice render engine. It has some downsides, especially when it comes to refractions. So if you're rendering glasses or, I don't know, some kind of water, fluid stuff, or even subsurface scattering and things like that, it doesn't look so sexy in Redshift. But with some tricks and stuff, you can also make it look good. We can also make a tier list for Houdini nodes. Yeah, that would be funny. We can do that at some point. We can for sure do that. Material system is a plus. Also AOVs, but Brew can be slow as hell. Yeah, sometimes. It depends. For example, if you're having a lot refraction, subsurface scattering, caustics is also quite slow in Redshift. I think caustics are much faster in Octane, aren't they? Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm talking bullshit right now. But I know caustics are super slow in Redshift. Also volumetric light, if you're having like these, particles and stuff in the light, it's super slow. It can get slow quickly, but I would still put it on S tier since it's the industry standard in 3D design and it's widely used. And I know a lot very good designers who are using Redshift. Also here in the chat, right? Tim J is using Redshift. He's also using Octane. Jacob, I don't know if he's still here, but he uses Redshift. Yeah, a lot great designers. Vincent Schwenk is using Redshift. Caustics are slow in Redshift. When I tested it, it was faster, but I also tested it before photon tracing was a thing in Octane. Yeah, I think they also have a new feature in Redshift where it's not it's brute force caustics that is like super fast. I haven't tried that out yet, but as far as I know, when I was using caustics in Redshift, it slowed down the render time quite drastically. Especially if you want to have nice, highly detailed caustics and not this blurry kind of bullshit, But yeah, I don't know. I haven't used caustics in Octane, I gotta admit, so I don't know how fast it is in Octane. But yeah. Okay, last but not least, we're having V-Ray. I think V-Ray is also more used in ArchViz, in architectural visualization, and also interior renderings. But V-Ray is not so much used in the motion design industry. So I would put V-Ray also on Z or D tier. So V-Ray also has a real-time counterpart. V-Ray is a A tier at least. People are sleeping on it in the motion design industry. V-Ray is the king of archive, but it's crazy good for product visuals and motion design. Interesting take here. Interesting take. People should really try the 30-day trial. Interesting take. I would say you're maybe right. I don't know. I never used V-Ray. But from my standpoint, I don't know a single studio who is using V-Ray in the 3D design bubble. V-Ray is not very much used. It's not, yeah, as Glepic is saying, V-Ray is good, but not very common. So if you are a beginner and you learn V-Ray, it's gonna be tough for you to find jobs or bookings because the studio will be asking you what is your skill set, and if you say, for example, yeah, I'm using 3ds Max with V-Ray, the studio is or the product or the, what is it called, the producer, the head of production or whatever you're talking to, the creative director will be like, yeah, you know, that's cool, but we're using Cinema 4D and Redshift, or we're using Cinema 4D, Houdini, and Octane. And then you're basically there, okay, why should the studio hire you if you're using different software, right? So if you want to work in the industry, definitely focus on these 4 softwares. And if you're comfortable with, let's say, Cinema 4D and Redshift, you can jump on maybe some Marvelous Designer, ZBrush on top of that. And before you even start with one of these 4 softwares, I would recommend you to jump into Blender. This is just my wild take on the 3D industry, on 3D design. Yeah, what do you guys think? Am I completely wrong here, or is this tier list understandable? And would you agree? Most complete, best integrated render through all DCC. It never lets you down. Maybe, fair enough, yeah. I don't know, but I don't know a lot of studios who are using it. If you do cars, they use V-Ray a lot. Oh, really? Interesting. I think for cars also Octane is really powerful. So I think if you're using Octane, you can also do beautiful car renderings. I also know projects, car project where they use Redshift. Especially like with Man vs. Machine, we did the Volvo job which was also Redshift. So I'm not so sure if all the car renderings are V-Ray. Maybe there are a lot car renderings with V-Ray, but I think the Volvo stuff was done with Redshift. V-Ray is for grown-ups. V-Ray is for boomer, my friend. The new V-Ray is crazy easy. I learned Redshift after V-Ray and Corona. A lot of it transfers, just different render settings. Brew depends on what you're doing. Of course, it always depends on what you're doing. This is why I said not only the beginning, but I think like hundreds of times in this live stream that I'm speaking from a standpoint of a 3D designer, motion designer, and this rendering is done with Redshift. And I think it's also beautiful and realistic and nice. So even for car renderings, you don't need V-Ray or Octane. This is all been done with Redshift. And I think it's quite nice, isn't it? So yeah, this is my tier list of software. This is a little guy for also people who just start to learn, come in this 3D field, who don't know where to start. Yeah, this is a little guide. And yeah, we already spoke 1.5 hours. And I think that was after the crash we had with the internet. So yeah, I think this is pretty much it. I think in the next stream we might do a little different tier list. Maybe we can do a little tier list about Houdini nodes. Would be funny as well. But I kind of like this tier list stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for being part of the stream, my guys. And thank you very much for creating this tier list together with me. I feel like it was teamwork. It was not only my opinion, but we created this together. So yeah, thank you very much.